to me. So Keir Starmer is eyeing up this idea of access to... We have access to the single market. It's not like there's zero trade with the EU all of a sudden. This is basically paying to follow their rules again. This, honestly, whether you want to be in the EU or not want to be in the EU, surely, Mike, it amounts to a betrayal of what people voted for.
Well, people did vote for us to leave the European Union.
To the two, I would say, big economies of the future. Whilst Europe, much like Britain, hasn't grown at all, because Europe, much like Britain, has put stupid rules on itself that has held back that kind of growth. Anything that ties us into those sorts of sclerotic, terrible rules will be a bad thing. Don't take it from me, take it from big tech companies, big AI companies, which again, the technology of the future. You can get cool new things happening in the UK that you cannot get in the European Union because they've got stupid backwards rules to protect a European AI industry that doesn't exist at all. But if we want to have access to...
Indeed, it's good to meet a friend again and to be here with you. We are friends and we are Europeans. We are very like-minded. We share the same interests and the same values. We face the same challenges, but we are complementary and also in defending our democracies.
Britain stands at a crossroads once again. Only this time, the stakes may be even higher than they were 5 years ago. After officially cutting ties with the European Union in a historic break that redefined the nation's global identity, a new political storm is gathering, and it's not coming from Brussels. It's coming straight out of Downing Street.
So let me be very clear. Under Labour, Britain will not go back into the EU. We will not be joining the single market or the customs union. Now, I know that some people don't want to hear that, but it's my job to be frank and to be honest, and you'll always get that from me. The reason I say this is simple. Nothing about revisiting those rows will help stimulate growth, or bring down food prices, or help British business thrive in the modern world. It would simply be a recipe for more division. It would distract us from taking on the challenges that are facing people. And it would ensure that Britain remains stuck for another decade. Under Labour, that simply will not happen.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer, once seen as a cautious steward of post-Brexit Britain, is now being accused of orchestrating a quiet reversal, one that could pull the United Kingdom back under the shadow of Brussels' influence. The warnings aren't whispers anymore, they're full-blown sirens, and the entire British establishment is beginning to take notice.
Control. Everyone knows that slogan, and everyone knows what it meant on immigration, or at least that's what people thought. Because what followed from the previous government, starting with the people who used that slogan, was the complete opposite. Between 2019 and 2023, even as they were going round our country, telling people with a straight face that they would get immigration down, net migration quadrupled until in 2023 it reached nearly 1 million. That's about the population of Birmingham, our second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos. And look, they must answer for themselves. But I don't think that you can do something like that by accident. It was a choice made even as they told the country, they were doing the opposite. A one-nation experiment in open borders, conducted on a country that voted for control. Well, no more. Today, this Labour government is shutting down the lab. The experiment is over. We will deliver what you've asked for time and again, and we will take back control of our borders.
In a stunning development that has rattled the country's political foundation, the UK's most senior judge has reportedly called for an emergency audience with King Charles III. Not since the tumultuous aftermath of the 2016 referendum have constitutional alarm bells rung so loudly. Sources suggest the judge was compelled to act after learning of Starmer's controversial plans for the upcoming May 19th UK-EU summit. plans that many fear could permanently alter Britain's sovereignty without public debate or parliamentary approval.
People often say, well, you want to be Prime Minister, do you know how to make a tough decision? And my answer to that is, if you sat in a cell in a Caribbean jail with someone who's going to live if you get the argument right in their case and die if you don't, that's a pretty... that focuses the mind on what you
At the heart of the controversy lies a dramatic policy pivot. After promising to respect the Brexit mandate and secure Britain's independence, Starmer is now laying the groundwork to reintegrate the UK with key European institutions. Reports point to a series of sweeping changes already in motion. The reintroduction of EU food and agricultural standards, a willingness to accept the jurisdiction of European courts in select matters, and even quiet negotiations to expand immigration frameworks aligned with EU norms. To critics, this isn't a policy tweak, it's the systematic undoing of Brexit, and it's not happening through open discourse or referendums. It's happening behind closed doors, through quiet handshakes, technocratic arrangements, and an alarming lack of transparency. The question now echoing through Parliament, the media, and even Buckingham Palace, is Britain being dragged back into the EU, not by the will of the people, but by the will of one man?
Speaking of the French, yesterday Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer met with President Emmanuel Macron. Now, the Daily Mail are reporting that the meeting was organised by none other than Tony Blair. He is reportedly pushing the Labour leader to consider even closer ties with the EU, possibly even to reverse Brexit. Now, it's important to note this is something Labour say they're not interested in doing, but with some EU leaders announcing a form of second-tier so-called associate membership, closer alignments with the single market and greater access to the EU, is this something that a Starmer-led government might consider? Well, joining me.
At the centre of the growing backlash is one decision that critics call the ultimate betrayal. Keir Starmer's reported willingness to allow the European Court of Justice to regain jurisdiction over UK-EU legal disputes. Yes, the very court that symbolised foreign overreach during the Brexit campaign. The same institution millions of voters believed they had left behind for good. Now, under Starmer's direction, it may once again hold sway over British law. To many, it feels like déjà vu, with none of the democracy. The people voted to take back control. Starmer appears ready to give it away, and he's rebranding it as pragmatism. It's a word that, to those who remember the fiery Brexit battles, now sounds dangerously hollow. And it doesn't end there.
In this moment, we have to recognise the new era that we are in, not cling hopelessly to the comforts of the past. It's time for us to take responsibility for our security, for our continent. And I've been clear today, Britain will take a leading responsibility, as we always have, because Ukraine must have a secure future, Europe must have a secure future, Britain must have a secure future, and democratic values must prevail.
Starmer's inner circle is reportedly finalising a youth mobility agreement with the EU, an initiative that would reopen Britain's doors to thousands of young Europeans, granting them access under the banners of work, study and temporary residence. The proposal is being sold as a modern post-Brexit compromise designed to boost labour markets and foster international cooperation. But for many, it's the first crack in the dam. Critics say it's a Trojan horse. Today it's youth schemes. Tomorrow, full freedom of movement could return. And for a country that endured years of political turmoil to end precisely that policy, the warning signs are flashing red.
What that's done is make us all a hell of a lot poorer. So all of us are poorer, there are fewer jobs, our wages have been kept down, there's less incoming investment from other nations and foreign investors. It's made all of our lives worse. What Keir Starmer's trying to do is keep Brexit, so not go back on that vote. And you're right, people did vote for that. It's right, therefore, that we're out. But what he's trying to do is make the best of a bad job. So do a Brexit that makes us less worse off.
James, I there's 1,000 things I could say, but it's your job to do that instead of me right now.
Unsurprisingly, I disagree with this idea that it's made us enormously poorer in all kinds of ways. Just in the past week, we've seen the first glimpses of what an independent trade policy will look like with India, with the United States. Those deals are not perfect, but they're a start. They're good, and they're good relative to what the EU has had. And lots of people say, you'll never get a deal with India, you'll never get a deal with America. Well, it's happened, and those are the two, I would say, big economies of the future. Whilst Europe, much like Britain, hasn't grown at all, because Europe, much like Britain, has put stupid rules on itself that has held back that kind of growth. Anything that ties us into those sorts of sclerotic, terrible rules will be a bad thing. Don't take it from me.
Public mood is growing restless, especially in the wake of Labour's punishing losses in the recent local elections. Reform UK, the party formed to carry the torch of Brexit, surged past Labour in several working-class heartlands once thought unshakably loyal to the Red Banner. It wasn't a subtle message, it was a roar of disapproval. Most leaders would pause and reflect. But Starmer? He's doing the opposite. Instead of slowing down, he's pressing harder. More EU alignment, more policy overlap, and less interest in what voters across Britain actually want. The road ahead is beginning to look all too familiar, except this time, no one asked for the ride. Even Britain's defence strategy is now being pulled into the equation. Defence Secretary John Healey has admitted that the UK is willing to pay into EU defence programmes. That's right. British taxpayers will be funding joint military projects while Brussels holds the reins. UK companies are expected to contribute money, but it's the EU that decides how it's spent. In return, Britain gets a seat at the table, just not the power to set the menu. It's being sold as cooperation, but to many it feels more like surrender, with Britain writing the cheque and watching Brussels cash it in. And it gets worse. Reports suggest the UK could be tied into the EU's growing rearmament agenda. That includes surveillance coordination, joint military planning, and even AI systems used in defence. The implication? UK soldiers and intelligence assets slowly aligning with European command. It's not just a partnership, it's a shift in allegiance. And that shift has triggered alarms at the highest levels of Britain's legal system. According to insiders, a senior figure within the Supreme Court has raised serious constitutional concerns over Starmer's quiet realignment with Europe. The biggest red flag? The potential return of the European Court of Justice as an authority over British affairs. That move, legal experts say, could undercut the very foundations of the UK's constitutional independence. In response, this judge has reportedly reached out directly to King Charles III, requesting an urgent meeting. While the monarch cannot interfere in politics, the very request highlights just how serious the situation has become. Within palace walls, concern is growing. One insider described the mood bluntly. There's a sense that the will of the people is being eroded, and it's happening behind closed doors, without transparency or consent. And now, the plot moves into full view. Starmer isn't just working the back channels. He's preparing a grand public display. On May 19th, London will host a high-profile UK-EU summit. Ursula von der Leyen will be there, Antonio Costa too. The whole thing is being branded as a new era for UK-EU relations. But behind the podiums and handshakes, deals are waiting to be signed. And those deals? They edge Britain closer and closer to Brussels once again. We've seen this playbook before. Polished speeches, vague promises, and behind them, a quiet undoing of Brexit.
Indeed, it's good to meet a friend again and to be here with you. We are friends and we are Europeans. We are very like-minded. We share the same interests and the same values. We face the same challenges, but we are complementary and also in defending our democracies.
Starmer's inner circle is reportedly finalising a youth mobility agreement with the EU, an initiative that would reopen Britain's doors to thousands of young Europeans, granting them access under the banners of work, study and temporary residence. The proposal is being sold as a modern, post-Brexit compromise, designed to boost labour markets and foster international cooperation. But for many, it's the first crack in the dam, critics say. It's a Trojan horse that's youth schemes. Tomorrow, full freedom of movement could return. And for a country that endured years of political turmoil to end precisely that policy, the warning signs are flashing red. For Starmer, This is his moment, his legacy move. He wants to be remembered as the man who fixed the UK's relationship with Europe. But critics say this isn't fixing anything, it's reversing everything, quietly, piece by piece, without a single vote cast. That wraps up today's critical update. We want to make one thing clear. Our goal isn't to stir fear or spread misinformation. Everything you've heard is grounded in verified reporting and real developments inside the UK government and legal system. If you believe the public deserves transparency, if you think decisions this big shouldn't be made behind closed doors, then your voice matters more than ever. Share this video, leave a comment below, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the Britain Info channel for more straight-to-the-point updates on the stories that actually shape your future. Thank you for watching.